Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our third and final webinar of the day. My name's Tony Waite from Expo Exhibitions, the proud owners and organisers of the wonderful New Zealand Gift and Homeware Fairs. Sadly, today would have been day 2 of our spring gift fair, and whilst we can't be seeing you in person, we're certainly looking forward to welcome you back in 2022, starting with the March Autumn Gift Fair. And I know that there's many thousands of retailers and wholesalers that are looking forward to getting back into face-to-face discussions and business. So thanks again for all your amazing support. And remember, you can all source your favourite products from our wonderful wholesalers to stock up those shelves for Christmas in the gift magazine, which of course you all know you can find at giftfairs.co.nz. As I said, we've already had 2 webinars today and they've been fantastic. If you've missed them, the good news is they're all recorded. So we're going to be sending a link out to you all so that you can look back and either watch it again or watch it for the first time. But it's been a fantastic response. Now, joining me this afternoon is Prabin, who is the SEO and Content Manager at Pure SEO. Prabin has extensive experience in SEO and conversion rate optimization consulting for small, medium, and large businesses. So you've got an expert on hand, and we're delighted to have him join us. Again, thank you, Prabin. We really do appreciate it. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Prabin to the virtual stage. See you later, everyone, and thanks again for all your support.
Hello everyone, my name is Prabin. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Retail Expo, for this opportunity. Today we will be discussing a few things around SEO, search engine optimization. So without any further delays, I'll actually just start the presentation, and when towards the end of the presentation, we'll have some time for question and answer as well, if you guys want to clarify a few things. So let's start. Started from the end, but let's go towards the beginning. So as I've already mentioned, my name is Prabin, SEO and Content Manager here at Pure SEO. I've been in digital marketing for over 7 years and specialize in SEO, search engine optimization, and CRO, conversion rate optimization. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to answer some questions there as well. And I do share some tips now and then for both SEO and CRO. A bit about Pure SEO. Pure SEO was founded in 2009 by Richard Conway. It is number 1 SEO agency in market share today. So I'm really proud to be a part of the organization. We also were Deloitte Technology Fast 500 in Asia Pacific for 2013 to 2018. One of the companies to have consecutive name on the list for that long. In terms of our service offerings, as the name stands, SEO is our core offering, but we do offer other services as well: content marketing, conversion rate optimization, search engine marketing, or also commonly known as PPC or Google Ads, and social media marketing. For today, in our agenda, I have few things planned. We'll start with introduction to SEO, search engine optimization, and its pillars. We will then look into some of the important SEO elements. I'll also cover a few portions or few sections on how to optimize your website for search engines, and finally we'll wrap up with Q&A session. So let's jump into introduction to SEO and its pillars. I'll start with definition of SEO, which most of you probably already know. SEO stands for search engine optimization, and it is the process of improving the quality and quantity of traffic to your website from search engine result pages. In New Zealand, it is when we talk about search engine, it's mostly Google, but we cannot really ignore other search engines like Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, which is emerging quite fast. So, but about 98% of the market share in New Zealand is Google. So our optimization strategies are highly focused towards Google as well. Now that is good. Why do we really need SEO? I have a chart here on my left, which is a study performed by Ahrefs, one of the well-known SEO tool in the industry. Based on the research, about 90.63% of the web pages get no organic search traffic. That's a huge gap. And website owners like yourselves can definitely leverage that gap and be in that 10-11% of the websites or web pages which actually gets some organic traffic. And that is why SEO needs to be a core or one of the channels that you optimize for, or you gain your visibility for better revenue from a business perspective. In addition to that, do have few more other industry stats that will kind of clarify or motivate you to invest more time on optimizing your website for search engines. The very first one, very relevant for a lot of businesses that operate locally or only in a national level, and that is 46% of all searches on Google are for a local business or local service. That's a huge share of searches. Right? 46% of searches are very local. That means you don't really need to worry about big giants, or think that, with all these big giants in the market, you probably might not have a chance. That's not really the case. Users actually want to be helping, especially post-COVID. It's all been about helping local businesses. And the stat also shows the same thing. About 46% of the searches are local, which means businesses like yours will definitely need to work hard to gain that momentum. And it's not hard as well. It's not hard to beat big players. In fact, it's easier to beat big players than a competitor who is also about your size. As long as you're following your best practices, big brands are not really a problem. About 53.3% of website traffic comes from organic search. Right? We do have other channels. We have paid channels. We have social media. You might have forums. Traditional marketing channels and all. But out of all those, 53.3% of website traffic come from organic search. We cannot really ignore search engine optimization. Right? And the other fact or other stat that I have, which is based on Backlinko's research, is that number one result in Google gets approximately 32% of all clicks. Just because you do search engine optimization doesn't guarantee you being in the number one, right? It is a constant process. It is constant optimization, and it is constant effort from your end to keep improving and ensure that your competitors aren't doing better than yourself, right? And if you do or end up position one in Google search for related terms, related keywords, then you'll be getting about 32% of all clicks. So even more reasons to invest more on SEO and try to be in that number one spot. The other research done by HubSpot actually shows that SEO leads have 14.6% close rate, which is much higher as compared to other channels. For example, referrals. For referrals, it's 9%. For paid search, it's 7%. For social media, it's 4%. And for other outbound marketing channels, it's only 2%. As you can see, the difference is really high. And 14.6% close rate is really good for your business. So we're not saying that you shouldn't be focusing on other channels, but the idea is not to leave SEO behind. We understand that SEO is a slow process. It takes time. In fact, the researchers actually show that most of the websites that are in top 3 position usually have been doing SEO for at least 2 to 3 years. So it is definitely a slow process. It takes time. Unlike paid ads, right? You pour in money today, you start appearing at the top pretty much instantly. That's not the case with SEO, but in the long run, that gives you the most return on investment. So it is important that you start working on your search engine optimization from today. Next, we'll jump into the pillars of SEO. When we talk about pillars of SEO, traditionally, we've always talked about 3 pillars: technical, backlinks, and content. But the space has evolved so much, it's not really about 3 pillars anymore, right? And we have a 4th pillar now, which is called user experience, right? Now, if you look into the diagram here, I've got a 3-legged stool and a 4-legged chair, right? Just feel yourself sitting down on those 2, and just imagine which one will be comfortable. Obviously, the later one, right? Because it's all about comfort. It's all about you feeling that confidence, you feeling that experience, which is great. And the same thing applies in search engine optimization as well. When it comes to search engines and about Google especially, it's always been user first. It's always been providing great experience for users, right? Whether that be serving the right text content, be images, be videos, be in different formats of the results, right? If you go search something today, you will see so many different formats. At times you will see a featured snippet with, that covers a huge real estate in the search results. You will see maps, you will see image thumbnail, you will see star ratings. So all of these improvements over the years have always been keeping user experience in mind. So today, it's not anymore just about technical SEO, not just about backlinks, not just about content. They're still very important, but ultimately all these different elements will need to enhance user experience. That is something you cannot ignore, and we should not as well. Let's look into these further. So content, as you probably have heard hundreds, if not thousands of times, content is king has been a phrase that's been around for years. And at one point or the other, you guys probably have heard about it. Now, content still can be considered king, right? I mean, I personally would probably choose a different variation, but it's something that people are used to, so I decided we'll go with that. Content is still king, right? When we talk about content, it's all about adding value to users. So not writing content for the sake of writing it, not producing blog for the sake of, just say, hey, we have produced a blog, 1 blog a week or 2 blogs a month, something like that. It's not just about just randomly creating content. It has to add value to users. It has to be original, right? Now, at times when you search for any information, you might feel like, okay, there are a lot of information out there in the market, and it's probably already been described pretty well. If you feel like you cannot add any value or any new information, then probably not worth writing about it because it's already out there. Look for something that's not really satisfying users' intent, or it's not answering what users are looking for, and write those kind of content. Or if you think like, okay, there's some content out there, but I'm pretty sure I can add more value, I can make it better than those content out there. It's not original idea, but you can add value to that. So when we talk about value to users, it's about making decisions for users simpler by guiding them or by educating them. Right? Some of the ideas, I mean, these are probably the topics that's already been discussed a lot in the industry. Let's say gift ideas for, Christmas. And even in Christmas, you could be considering for different demographics, right? For toddlers or for teenage group or for parents or for your partners. There's plenty of ideas out there. Go look out there and see if any content is out there in the market or out there and performing well. Can you add value? Can you make it better? If your answer is yes, invest time on those. Start producing content like that. And that will help users to come back to you. Initially, that's just the awareness phase, right? When we talk about sales, we always talk about the funnel, but we kind of tend to forget that when we talk about other channels. Ultimately, the goal for any business is to generate revenue. So there's no point in actually forgetting about the funnel, right? We need to establish that journey for users from the very beginning, whether that be SEO or any other channels for that matter. And especially in SEO, we definitely need to look into that as well. So start from educating or awareness phase for your users and slowly drill them down or move them towards the bottom of the funnel, right? And while we talk about all these ideas, make sure they're up to date as well, right? You produce what is the most relevant at that stage, or produce what makes the most sense. I mean, it's probably already too late for producing content or gift ideas for Christmas. It's November, right? We do say that it's never too early for Christmas, but it's probably already late for Christmas as well. So we should have done that a few months ago, but it's still not too late. I mean, we still have some time. If you can promote that content pretty well, you still get good engagement out of it. So if you haven't done, or if you haven't researched about it yet, research about it. Find out what probably works best for you or what's not out there in the market, and work on it. Publish it as soon as possible. Promote it around, and that will also help. That will not only help you to gain more traffic to that particular guide or blog post, that will eventually drive more conversions as well, because then you can promote, say, hey, that's the idea and we have you covered with these items or this category here. So you can definitely upsell even while educating them. So please do that. And produce more than just text content. Lot of different variations, a lot of different types of content out there today, right? I mean, if you feel like, okay, this particular topic has been explained pretty well, there are plenty of resources out there. You search for that, like gift ideas for Christmas, you see hundreds of websites, but maybe you don't see any infographic out there. That might be one idea to look into. Or you don't find any videos talking about those content, right, in video format. Maybe not all users will be willing to spend 15 minutes or 10 minutes to read through everything. They probably might just want to hear or listen, or watch a video. Podcast is another audio content out there, right? Look into all these different opportunities. Maybe the same topic has been covered in one format, but you can make it better utilizing other formats as well. And if you see opportunities, please do that. Content structure and content length, very important. One of the things or most common issues that we come across is the content structure. It's very random, right? I mean, it is a very basic understanding that we all already have, but probably we ignore them, right? So we are very familiar with what H1s or what H2 or all these headings, H1 to H6 stand for. Right? H1 is meant to be the main driver or the main topic. It should represent that. And all other subheadings follow accordingly, right? But one of the things that we commonly come across as an issue is not following that hierarchical structure from S1 to S6. So definitely, please do follow that. And content length, obviously, choose quality over quantity, right? When we talk about length, maybe not all your blogs will be like 2,000 words. Some of them might be 500 words and still be very good, right? But keep in mind, if it is not in depth, that means there's more room for more content in there. Definitely go for it. Now, the next topic I want to cover today is backlinks. This is probably most widely talked topic in SEO. Everybody knows that backlinks are super important for SEO, and that has been the case for a while, right? And it's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. It's still important. Obviously, the importance and how search engines perceive the value of backlinks have changed over time, but as a topic, as a factor, backlink is still as important as it used to be. I do have a graph here from one of the researches done by Backlinko, which kind of shows correlation between total number of referring domains versus Google position. As you can see, more referring domains, better your ranking will be in Google. So what it kind of points out is you definitely need more websites, third-party websites pointing to your website. But something that is very important to keep in mind is it is not anymore just about quantity. It is more about quality than quantity. And what determines the quantity is the relevance to your business. Is that link that you got from, let's say, website A relevant to what you serve to users? Is that adding value to users? Or is it just random link that you know, maybe you purchased from somewhere else, or you just randomly got it from somewhere else? Always make sure you choose quality over quantity. And if you have both quality and quantity, that means nobody can really stop you. When you go out there to find partners, or you find opportunities to get backlinks for your website, look for a few things, right? Authority of that domain. By authority, don't really mean the domain authority that was made popular by the tool called Moz. That is a very good indicator, but do not blindly believe and go ahead only with that number. What you need to look into is visit the website yourself. See what sort of content they have on there, what sort of engagement, right? If you can get a stat around what sort of traffic that website or that particular page is getting, that's even better, right? The organic visibility that website has determines its authority with the users, and that is more important than what is shown in any other tools, right? I mean, the numbers of domain authority or whatever other different tools call it, that number changes from tools to tool. It's never consistent. So we cannot blindly believe or follow that numbers. That's a good starting point, good case to look into. But ultimately, go visit the website, get as much stat as possible, especially how well that website performs organically, right? And if everything is looking good, that's a good website to get backlink from. Also, make sure you stay away from PBNs or private blog network. What that means is someone decided to create hundreds of websites under one shared server and decided to promote in somewhere in Fiverr or Upwork, freelance network, or contact in LinkedIn and says, hey, I have 100 domains. Do you want links from those? Right? It used to work great in the past, but it doesn't anymore. Right? So I have a third point here that says number of links from separate C-class IPs. That basically means they're sharing the same server. It could be different URLs, right? But we do know that you can host hundreds and thousands of websites under one server, and if they are sharing one server, that is a big no. So make sure you look into those as well. The use of anchor text is really important when you get backlinks. So whenever possible, instead of just probably using a naked URL or using anchor text, or basically could be a word, could be a phrase, which are usually blue or underlined, and when you click on that phrase, it will take you to a link. So that portion is that phrase is considered or known as anchor text. The phrase or word that is used as a clicking element to point to some different link, right? So usually you will come across a lot of anchor text like visit website or click here, or sometimes just a naked URL. Stay away from those sort of practices as much as possible. Use something that is meaningful or adds more value to users. When users see that phrase, that should give an overview of what they can expect when they click that link. I do have a few examples in the later slide, so we'll cover that again. And diversity of link types. Where are those links coming from? Are they coming from directories? Are they coming from your partners? Are they coming from those public publishers? Where are they coming from? And also, do you have are they all do follow links or no follow links, or sponsored link or user generated content links, right? That could be you commenting in some sort of forum, or if you paid let's say entered Herald to a sponsored list, and it will actually say sponsored in the on the page, and they would apply a sponsored list schema that indicates that it's a sponsored link. And at times the website owners might use something called no follow attribute, which basically states or dictates Google not to follow that link and not to transfer any SEO equity. So the best is to get do follow links, but you do need to have all these different kinds of links just to ensure that it doesn't look very spammy, right? So make sure you do look into diversifying your link times as well. And link placement on a page, where it's placed can make a difference as well, whether it's placed higher up on the page or towards the footer, sidebar. All these have different values, and it is always recommended to have it higher up than towards the footer of the page. Next, technical SEO. That's probably one of the most challenging areas, especially for website owners who are managing their own websites with platforms like Shopify, which have made it easy for a lot of business owners to launch e-commerce site, without a lot of involvement from the web developers. And it comes with its own challenges. So making sure you do understand and you do take care of certain aspects of technical SEO is very important as well. For example, website architecture. I will actually cover in detail in another slide here, but I do want to quickly cover a few other things as well. Crawling and indexation, making sure your website is crawlable by search engines like Google. Right? That comes up. There are a lot of ways you could block without knowing. Right? Robots.txt is one example where you necessarily might not have noticed, but you might have blocked your pages from robots.txt. You might have applied no index meta tag. Maybe Google thought that your pages are duplicate and they decided to index only one of those. So there are a lot of areas that will affect crawling and indexation, keeping an eye on those. is really important. And one of the best ways to keep an eye on these things is using Google Search Console. It's free to set up, right? Just Google Search Console. It will ask you to log in using or sign up using your Google account. You do that. It will ask you to verify your website, which is a fairly easy process. The few options you can verify that using Google Tag Manager, just copying and pasting the HTML tag in the head section of your website. CMSs like Shopify or even WordPress makes it really easy to do that. A lot of tutorials out there, and if you feel like you would need our help, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help as well. Most of the CMSs handle URL structure quite well, but if you have custom built website, then that might be something to look into as well. Redirects, structured data, internal links, all these different areas out there. I will not cover everything. That's probably going to be way too long and way too technical, but just keep in mind these are the areas that you might need to keep an eye on. I'll definitely cover some of those here. User experience, like I said, the fourth pillar here, which has kind of gained momentum lately after Google Page Experience algorithm update. But a lot of those elements have been around for a while. It just wasn't center of attraction, but it is now. When we talk about user experience, one of the things to keep in mind is making sure your website navigation or the links, your top navigation or your site navigation, footer, all these different navigations that you use across your website are simple, clear, and consistent across the website. Right? At the end of the day, the sole purpose of those website navigation is to make sure user can navigate easily. So making that complicated doesn't really serve the purpose. So make sure you simplify that as much as possible. Optimizing for Google Page Experience is not really, it's really a no-brainer. Everybody needs to look into that. I will actually cover a lot on this one in my next slides, and ensure that you satisfy user intent. What are users searching for? What do they really want from your website at this stage, right? Like I said, it's all about making sure you are driving them from awareness to eventually loyalty stage in that sales funnel. Where are they in that stage? Are they still in awareness level? Or are they in a consideration stage? Where are they? And based on their intent, we need to be able to satisfy those as well. Next, we will look into the another chapter, which is optimizing your website for search engines. When we talk about optimizing websites for search engines, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands. So a lot of things to cover, but what I have done is picked up some of the major areas that you cannot really ignore in 2021, 2022. So we'll just cover those to start with, but those are not only the ones, unfortunately, there are more. So we'll need to, go on and look into those as well. So to start with, when we talk about search engine optimization, the starting point is to understand your target customers, understand your market. Right? What are users searching for? Are they looking for information at this stage, or are they actually trying to buy your products? Right? We need to understand that. So going back to the sales funnel, are we talking about the awareness stage? Are we talking about the consideration stage? Or maybe they're already your customers and we are in the loyalty stage. We do need to know where our customers stand at that point and make sure we serve or we provide information accordingly. That could be educational piece, that could be serving them the right products. So we need to understand what our users are searching for at that stage. We also need to know what the competition is like, what our competitors are doing. Maybe some of them might not be your direct competitors, but they are competitors for a certain portion of what you offer. Could be educational piece, could be the products, right? We need to know that, and we need to know what they are doing, right? And reverse engineer what they are doing better than you, and then try to beat them in their own game. Right? That could be producing better content, that could be offering better products, that could be maybe getting better links, backlinks from all different areas. And very important thing to consider, especially when you are in the early stages of search engine optimization, is choosing the fights that you can win easily. Now, one of the biggest things we kind of come across on a daily basis is when we go out to our customers and ask, who is your competitor? Usually we get big names, big brands saying that these are our competitors, we want to beat them. But in fact, they're not really their direct competitors, at least not at this stage, because we are just starting. They're big brands with a different market share, with a different brand visibility in the market, established in 25, 50 years in the market, right? Yes, at certain point, after a few years, we definitely want to compete with them, but that's not an easy fight to win at this early stage. Right? We need to make that process. We need to make sure that happens gradually. So start from what you can easily win today, what you can rank for easily today, and slowly increase that difficulty and go for bigger players and ultimately the biggest player in your industry. Right? Start slow, make it gradual process, make it gradual improvement, and ultimately you can definitely fight with big brands as well. So that was one of the reasons why I said that big brands aren't really your, something to be afraid of at this stage or when you are starting SEO, because they might have a big market presence in different areas, but they might not be the most SEO optimized website, or they might not be optimizing in all areas. So we just need to find out where the gap is and leverage that market, leverage that section, and eventually grow that market and compete with the giants within your industry. Next is ensuring your website architecture is optimal. When we talk about website architecture, it's pretty much like uh, a blueprint of your house. If it is well structured, if everything is planned well, then it is easy for everyone to go around. Everybody knows where the kitchen is, where the master bedroom is, where the bathroom is, where the shower is. It's easy. If it is not planned well, then it can be a task for every day. And same thing applies for website as well. Website architecture defines where each of your pages stay and how users can navigate them easily. On the left hand side, I have an example of good website architecture. So green one at the top, that's your home page. And from there we have blue, which could be considered as your categories, red as the subcategories, and the orange as products, let's say. Right? It's easy to navigate, easy to go step by step. Within few clicks, they can find the products they're looking for. On the right hand side, I have an example of poor website. So green again, maybe your home page, right? The blue ones here, I've got category pages, let's say, red, subcategories, orange, another subcategory, purple, which are the products, or maybe even another subcategory. I've got gray as well, which is another page, and I have some black ones as well, which are not linked from any of the pages. Those are known as orphan pages and are very bad for SEO. pretty much the whole structure here on the right hand side is bad for SEO. As you can see, if I if I want to access the page which is represented by gray here, that takes me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clicks. So not ideal for us for such a small website. Obviously, if your website has millions of pages, 6 clicks might be optimal, but we are talking about 10, 15 pages, 6 clicks within that, that's not optimal for sure. Right? So depending on the size of your website, make sure it is optimal. It is as less click as possible for users to access any of your website pages. When your website is really big, and it can be tricky, to kind of downsize the number of clicks. So in those cases, we definitely have other ways to optimize those, such as internal links. But before that, just want to point out not to ignore the basics. Right? These might not be the most important ranking factors. In fact, meta description, for example, is not really a ranking factor, but it's still important. These are basics. Make sure you don't ignore those. So page title is still a ranking factor, maybe a very minor one, but it's still a ranking factor. So cannot really ignore that. And when we talk about page titles, making sure it's descriptive and concise, use your keywords, and if you can, way towards the beginning, and definitely do not overuse them. Do not stay away from keyword stuffing. Do not repeat the same word or same phrase again and again. Maintain character length of about 65 to 70 characters, more towards 65. Always use your brand name on your page title. Always recommend it, and make sure it is unique for every page. Meta description, of course, use focus keywords, but stay away from keyword stuffing. Make sure you write complete sentences. Maintain a character length of 155 to 160. Make sure it is unique for every page. End with call to action, right? Could be like buy now, read more, right? Even learn more is fine, right? And maybe create some urgency as well when you talk about meta description, like looking for gifts to be delivered before Christmas. We've got you covered, or we do free shipping from this date to this date. Create that urgency, and end with call to action. Even though it's not a ranking factor, meta description is something that users see in the first instance in the search engine result pages. They will see the breadcrumb navigation if you are using breadcrumb. Otherwise, they will see URL. They will see page title. They will see the meta description. In some cases, if your result was eligible for rich results, then you might see the users might see review rating or pricing, and all these different elements. So all these different elements contribute to click-through rate, and click-through rate is ranking factor. So even though meta description is not a direct ranking factor, it does contribute eventually. Right? So make sure you write a good meta description. If you don't, Google rewrites them, and most of the time it doesn't really make sense. They randomly pick up your text from different portion of your website, thinking that it's the best, but it usually isn't. So spend some resources, spend some time to write those meta description yourself. Headings, very important. Few things to remember when we talk about headings. The very important one is making sure you have only one H1 per page. You can use multiple subheadings, but remember to follow that hierarchical order from H1 to H6 when you use your headings. Use your focus keywords whenever possible, and make sure you keep your heading tags consistent. Right? Don't make your H1 like 40 points large in one page and just 20 points in another page, making sure they're consistent. I did mention about content structure, right? And usually headings are what provides the structure to your content, and that is why hierarchical order is very important. I do have an example here. So we recently wrote a blog titled 7 Focus Areas for Successful Link Building. Right? It is one of our old blogs, but we recently updated it, right? And that's what we constantly do. We, the topic is same, but we keep it fresh by updating. Sometimes we might remove some of the factors, we add new factors when necessary. So we constantly refresh and keep our content up to date. So this article that we recently updated is a featured snippet for if you if you search for something like focus areas for link building or successful link building focus areas, or even successful link building, right? So as you can see, there are some bullet points there, right? And if you visit this blog, all those bullet points are actually subheadings. Those are all H2s on our website. Because we are following that hierarchical order, and because Google can easily understand what the focus topic is and what are the subtopics, they can translate our heading and subheadings into a snippet like this, and makes us eligible for future snippets like this, within few days of updating the blogs. So always follow your hierarchical order from S1 to S6. That makes it easy for search engines to understand the structure of your website, and that will be one of the factors that will help you to be eligible for featured snippet like this. There are a few other points in there. So for example, always start your heading, a subheading in this case S2s, with a verb or noun phrase, right? So as you can see, in our case, all are verbs. And if you visit our link here or this page, we actually have numbered all these points. Even though we are using the subheading, we actually say 1, gain high quality or authoritative links, 2, relevancy of a site. So use that numbers to indicate the number bullet system, but instead of bullets, choose numbering system, of course. And whenever possible, start with verb or noun. I mean, it might not be always possible, so there can be 1 or 2 point which are kind of exceptions there, but if possible, make sure you use those. And that kind of gives a good structure for your content and helps you gain those featured snippet real estate. Images I've probably heard hundreds, thousands of times. Sorry, but it's still important to optimize them. Provide a very descriptive file name, all text, compress them, and whenever possible, use it as a content, right? We talked about different formats of content, and image can actually just enhance even a normal text content as well. So don't ignore that. Internally linked relevant pages, very important. Whenever it adds value to users, link to other pages. Could be your blog page, could be your product page, right? Ultimately, it's all about making it easier for users to navigate from one page to other page, and also adding value to those. From a SEO perspective, for search engines, it makes it easy for search engines to discover all these different pages that are in different areas within the website, and also helps distribute links from your from, let's say, homepage to all other category, subcategory pages, or from your blog pages to product pages. It's a cycle that that is maintained with the internal linking best practices. So, for example, we have a blog that talks about local SEO, right? And when we talk about local SEO, Google My Business optimization is a huge part. But because we had a separate, we have a separate blog for optimizing Google My Business listing, what we did was, instead of covering same thing in the local SEO blog, what we did was we linked from local SEO blog to Google My Business listing blog. So what it does is, so with that internal linking, it was, we were helping Google or other search engines to crawl, Google My Business listing page for users. When they were looking for overall local SEO, we also pointed towards a blog that talks just about Google My Business in detail, with a step-by-step process. So adds value to users as well. So whenever you have, or whenever you can add value by adding a link to a page, make sure you do that. And it is really helpful, and probably one of the most underutilized technique in SEO. So make sure you go back, revise all your blogs, maybe all your informational pieces, or all your product pages or description pages, and see for opportunities and link to all your different pages internally, and that will definitely help you in the long run. Page experience, it's a very technical, but one of the biggest changes that Google made in 2021, even though it was announced a year earlier, but it rolled out in June this year, which was supposed to roll out in May, but they postponed it due to COVID. So it's out there. There are few factors that we look into. Most of them are already known and been around for a while. So mobile usability, making sure your website is mobile friendly, making sure you have SSL installed on your website for HTTP as a status, safe browsing, making sure your website doesn't have malwares or any other security issues that needs to be looked into as well. Intrusive, let's say, pop-ups, right? The only exceptions here would be the cookie policy, or even age verification if your business requires. But anything other than that, be very careful, right? You could probably use slide-ins, but make sure you're not using intrusive pop-ups. Core Web Vitals is the latest or the newest editions, which talks about or covers 3 different elements: LCP, largest content full print, first input delay, FID, CLS, cumulative layout, SIFT. When we talk about improving LCP, or largest content full print, what it does is basically looks into the amount of time required for the largest element on a page to load by your browser. Could be, mostly it is image, but could be any other resources as well. So if it is image, then one of the ways to make sure you optimize for LCP is to convert those images from, let's say, PNG, JPG, whatever format you're using, to modern formats like JPEG 2000 or JPEG XL or even WebP. Right? Most of the CMSs out there would have some sort of plugins that would help you out. But if you have a custom built website, then there are other tools, online tools, that could help you out as well. Compressing images, no brainer, making sure whenever possible, especially for images that are below the fold, or are using lazy loading techniques, that's really important. Most of the websites are responsive today, so responsive images is not really a big problem, but just keep an eye on those as well. If you are using GIFs on your website, it's probably time to change that. Use video formats like MP4 instead, and make sure you save your resources over CDN. Your images, your CSS files, your JavaScript files are served over CDN. Platforms like Shopify do it very well. It's everything is served over CDN, so nothing to worry about. If you're using other platforms, then that is something to consider. There are a lot of providers out there. Make sure you research. Some of them do offer free plans, so you start with those, and if it works really well, then you can go for improved or the pro version or paid version of those services as well. Improving FID of first input delay. What this measures is if user interact while loading, while your website is still loading. So let's say they click a button, how long does it take for your browser to respond to that interaction by the user? So ideally it should be less than 100 milliseconds, but if it is more than that, then that's a problem. Right? There's only one thing that you could do to improve FID, and it's called minimizing main thread. Now, before we understand what main thread and everything is, it is very important to understand how your browser works. So let's say you put a URL in your web browser, in your address bar, let's say www.pureseo.com. What happens in the background is your browser will first download all the codes that are associated with that URL. So they will download all the images, the browser will download fonts, style information, scripts and everything. Once they're downloaded, they will then execute the scripts. Once they execute the scripts, then they will serve you with the well-built web page that you were trying to access. Even though for us it happens within a few seconds, it's a lot of work. And this portion here, which is execute scripts, is what is considered as main thread, right? More scripts or more resources to execute means it will take longer for that particular page to load. And if we minimize that work for browsers, that means it will load faster. So in simple terms, use less resources to load the web page. There are few techniques, right? Obviously, you cannot avoid all the scripts. You might need a lot of those scripts, and maybe some of them are not required in the initial load, but eventually you will require those. So identify those resources and use something called default async HTML attributes. What these two attributes will do is identify. So what this will do is, instead of executing everything at once, it will either create a parallel thread, which is secondary and not important for page load, or it will download and wait until everything is loaded for the first instant to load and load later on. So it will not affect the initial page load time. Something that your web developer can definitely help you out. I do have a question from Bailey here. How do you check the speed of FID? There is a Google PageSpeed Insights. So if you put your URL in Google PageSpeed Insights, then we will indicate what your FID is. But if you have Google Search Console access for your website and your website has a fair amount of traffic, then Google Search Console is also a good place to look for what FID performance looks like for your web pages. The only problem with Google Search Console is that if your website doesn't have good amount of traffic, then it won't show any data. So then you will have to use Google PageSpeed Insights. Next, we'll look into CLS or cumulative layout shift. There are a few reasons why this happens, and then there are a few ways to address those as well. Ideally, CLS should be less than 0.1. One of the most common issues or common reason why we have CLS is missing dimensions for your images. So I do have an example of what it should look like. So assigning dimensions to your image, which is HTML code here. for calling images for your website. So the idea is to make sure you assign dimensions to your images so that they're not randomly choosing their place themselves. The other one is if you are using iframe or any other embeds, for example, YouTube, video embeds, then making sure you specify or assign dimensions is also another thing to keep an eye on. And if you are using third-party fonts like Google fonts or even Adobe fonts and like that, make sure you preload those fonts, because if it takes too long, if the main thread is too big for the browser to load, initially there might not be a font to load. So the browser, for example, your Chrome browser, would just either not show anything, right? So your font will be invisible, or will show a different font until your actual font is rendered, which causes either flash of invisible text or flash of uninstalled text. To avoid that, you need to preload your font. So here's an example of what the code would look like in a source code label. Right? And like I mentioned earlier, these aren't really all, but these are some of the major areas that you should not ignore in 2021, 2022, right? But obviously, a lot of these are technical things that you might or might not be able to address yourself. And if you feel like you need help, we are here. Pure SEO is more than happy to help in any manner possible. And to sweeten the deal, New Zealand government actually have announced an economic support package. If you are registered with Regional Business Partners Network, then you could be eligible for funding. And if you get approval for the funding and you want Pure SEO's help, we could help you in different areas. So, for example, online growth strategy, how to grow your online business. Google Ads is one of the other areas that we could help you. Social media marketing. SEO, of course, as we are Pure SEO, so can't really say that we don't deal with SEO. We definitely do deal with SEO, email marketing, and also if you require website design or rebuild or a new website build, we can help you with that as well. If you would like to get more information from our end, please visit pureseo.com/COVID-19 and contact us by filling up the form on that page, and we're more than happy to get back to you. And with that, I will open the channels for questions if you have any. So I have another question from Bailey here. Would it be helpful to also put key search words at the bottom? I'm assuming you would mean the towards the bottom of the page. Yes, definitely. The way, don't focus around exact match keywords, right? Don't repeat the same keyword again and again, but more look into related terms or similar terms that would actually mean the same thing, like your synonyms or a slight variation, and spread them across your website. Just don't put it towards the top and then there's nothing in the middle or bottom. So definitely spread or distribute them linearly whenever possible. Next I have from Vanessa, how do you check your external links? So on a page label, you could definitely do it manually as well. But there are a lot of tools out there to check that. So for example, tools like Screaming Frog, Ahrefs, Moz. In fact, some of the tools provide you, Chrome extensions or Firefox extensions for free as well. So you can use some of those, like for example, Moz Toolbar, Ahrefs, SEMrush, all of them actually provide extensions which can help you look for external links within on a page label. If you want to look on a site label, you'll definitely need to crawl the whole website. Another question here, our website autofills meta description using the product description. Is it a good idea to put different information there? You can definitely use product description, but I would probably revisit and look into few things. One is whether it actually ends with a call to action or not, whether it's creating urgency or not. If not, then probably worth revisiting and updating some of the areas, but using product description in meta description is actually fine. Okay, looks like that's pretty much up. Okay, looks like that's pretty much it in terms of questions. So thank you all again for joining me in this session. I will probably get Tony back on board to wrap up this session.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Prabin. That was awesome. And Tali, for all those questions you were answering as you were going through the presentation. So lots of information there to digest, and I hope you all got a lot out of that. As Christoph said, we're going to make these presentations available to you all. So thanks again for your continued support, everyone. Sounds like there's some good news coming out of the 4 o'clock. I believe that retail in Auckland can open up next Tuesday. Hopefully I've got that right, so don't quote me, but I'm about to dive in and check all of that. But again, Prabin, Tali, amazing. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll see you at the gift fairs in 2022.